Hey everyone, welcome back.
Hi, Ayo. How are you?
Good, and you?
I'm good. I'm so excited to be interviewing you today because you're one of the people that I remember how I met you, and I was very inspired by your story from someone with three job offers. And I was like, oh my goodness, I have to follow this person and kind of follow their journey. So I have like an overview, as usual, of your journey, but I'm so excited to be hearing it today, the in depth of it. And I know that you joined Microsoft the same time I joined IBM, and you have also grown in your career. I know you recently started a new role in your career journey, which is from program manager to business program manager. So I'm really excited to be hearing what you do in your day to day, and hopefully someone can learn from that and possibly pursue that career choice as well. So tell me about yourself.
Hey, so my name is Ayo. I am Nigerian, so I grew up in Lagos, and I went to school in New Jersey. I went to Rutgers, New Jersey, Newark actually, and that's where I got my bachelor's and my master's in international relations and politics. So I actually studied political science. I didn't study business or finance or computer science or anything like that. I wasn't a doctor or lawyer or engineer like my mom wanted, like every African parent wanted. I started in government actually, so I had a lot of like experience in like the UN, governmental spaces. I lived in DC for a few months, interning for the government as well. But if you are a government student, one thing you realize is you don't get paid. It's basically slavery. You intern for free. That's basically it. So we used to intern for free back then. At that point, I'd already like I was over like I was over interning at places for free, and I wanted something different. And then it was also around the time where the change in government happened, a lot of people were quitting anyway. So a lot of the connections I had in government were quitting, and I had to really pivot and figure out what I wanted to do, and if government will still for me. One of the things that happened was one of my friends invited me to a conference called National Association for Black Accountants, and I was like, I'm not going. I have no experience in that. Like I studied political science, and it was like, no, just come through. Like you could just hang out. So I was like, cool. So I showed up to the conference, and I literally just hung out. I didn't really do anything. I hung out in the hotel, just literally chilled. On the last day there was a career fair, and I decided to go to the career fair. And when I went to the career fair, I was having a conversation with this guy. That was when Brexit just happened, and we were talking about the role of Brexit on the financial world and the financial system and businesses and organizations that are like just like international organizations, and like what exactly does that mean. And he was so impressed that after like half an hour conversation, I didn't know that he was one of like the VPs at JP Morgan. And he was like, would like, I'd like to interview you for an investment banking opportunity. And I'm like, I've never taken a finance class in my life. Like I've never taken accounting. I don't know what investment banking is. I know it involves money and Wall Street, but that's it.
Yeah.
And I ended up interviewing, and I got the role. And then I ended up applying to other opportunities at JP Morgan as internships, and I got them all. So it was three separate offers from the same company to intern with them. And the importance of this story is it really changed my mindset because it made me realize your major doesn't define you, and you can do whatever you want as long as like you're willing to learn and you're willing to like put yourself and like immerse yourself in it. You can learn anything, right?
Yeah.
It sounds like being a doctor maybe, or like right now, like I don't code, but if I want to learn how to code and I put my mind to it and I take classes, a year from now, like I'll be a coder. Like you could learn different things. I think having that mindset really kind of like unshackled me to realize like the sky is the limit. Right, I realized I could apply for anything. I just have to be able to show like what's my ability, what's my experience, what have I learned, what can I do, and how strongly am I willing to improve, right? Like a lot of times, sometimes companies are just looking for like your mental capacity. Like, can you actually do the job we're like hiring you for? Because you're always gonna have like a learning curve. I think for me, realizing that like made me start applying to everywhere. So that's how I was able to get the offer at Wells Fargo, Amazon, and Microsoft as someone who studied political science and international relations. Because I realized at that point I could apply anywhere as long as I looked at the job description. I was interested, and I felt like the skills and expertise that I had kind of aligns with what they're looking for, and then I feel like I could do more. Right. That's what got me to applying to Microsoft. That's what got me to interviewing at Microsoft. That's what got me the job I currently have at Microsoft as well. And actually, I wasn't gonna like move to Seattle and to take my Microsoft job because I lived on the East Coast. My friends were on the East Coast. My family was on the East Coast. So when I got the offer, I was like, I'm probably just gonna take the Wells Fargo job or to take the Amazon job because it was all on the East Coast, and I wanted to be close to my friends. So I was taking my time, and the recruiter Microsoft kept calling me every day. It was like, "Are you gonna sign the offer? What do you need?" And I was like, I'm still thinking about it. And then and there was a day where he called me and was like, the Microsoft CEO is going to be at the New York office. Would you like to meet him? I'm like, really? He's like, yeah. I was like, sure. So he set it up, and it was me and a bunch of different students who entered the Microsoft in the past, and they were coming back as like full-time employees. They already signed the offer letters. I was the only one who hadn't signed my offer letter, so it was very interesting. And then just talking to the guy and being able to learn from him and learning so much more, like, was just an amazing experience where I talked about my upbringing in Nigeria, the role of like technology in the developing countries and developing world. He talked about him growing up in India and what that meant, and like what technology means to them, and what technology means to the world, and the impact of tech. And just from that conversation with him, I remember leaving and on the subway drive, going back to Jersey, I signed my offer letter because I was so impressed and amazed with who he is and what it was. And from someone who interned in banking and investment banking, like there's a total difference between like how he talked about Microsoft and the culture, and how like the culture in finance.
That's an awesome story, and at least one person that did not study economics, you studied political science, so that's different. My next question for you is, how did you choose program management? So you came from interning. I think you had mentioned that one of your first internship was in the government, and then you moved to investment banking with JP Morgan and the likes, and then now you're a program manager at Microsoft. So that's kind of different roles, and yes, that's really nice because you've put yourself in different shoes. That's awesome. That's really wonderful. But why that change?
Yeah, I would say it's not all me, right? I want to say there's two parts to this. There's me like having a frank, honest conversation with myself and saying what exactly am I good at? What are the things I've done in the past that I've done well, and what are the things I haven't done well? So what's my skill? And how does that relate to the jobs out there? And then during the interview, making sure that I try to relate that as much as I can. So I was also placed into a PM role at the end of the day. So I felt like my interview kind of helped, where I was able to talk about, I worked on this project, I led this project from A to Z. This was the process that I went by it. This was what went wrong. This was how I fixed it. So before I showed up to the interview, I'd already kind of sat myself down to write down, like, what are my skills, what are my experiences, what are the things I've done well, how does it relate to the jobs I'm looking at and the roles I'm applying for.
Right. Well, I like that approach of sitting down and like putting your thoughts together and saying, these are my strengths and this is what I want to pursue. And it kind of makes sense because at the end of the day, you were working on projects. So now you're a program manager. So that kind of like came together, and I like that. So as a program manager, what do you do in your day to day?
Program managers can be different for everyone and anyone, depending on the team you're in, the role you're in, the company you're in. So I guess before I talk about my experience, I wanted to say that as a caveat, that like program managers can vary very differently, and we all have different experiences. So like I guess for people out there, don't ever think that there's one specific like a program manager does X, Y, and Z, and then that's it, because it can vary, right? I have friends who are technical program managers, which means they can code, they know systems and stuff like that. Like I said, I've never taken a business class ever. I've never taken a computer science class ever. I'm not technical. I don't know any code. So I am a non-technical PM. My PM role doesn't involve coding. It basically involves like an understanding of what the business is and what's the process, and then how do I manage it and how do we improve, right? So in my day-to-day, constantly what I've had to do as a PM is you're always working with different people. Think about a program manager as like a middle person. Like you're responsible for a specific business or space, but you're also like a middleman. You're a middleman between the business or the leaders and the people who are building, whether it's a process or a product, right? So in my case, one of the things I do as a program manager that I can say is I come in and I look at like a process from A to Z, and the first thing I'm judged about is everything working properly the way it's supposed to be working. So is everything flowing? And if it is, is that the best way to do it? Right. So basically, having a 360 view and asking questions and saying like, why do we do this? You always improve and figure out like a better way or better version to do it. So I'll use an example. I manage the offer letter space at Microsoft at Microsoft right now, which is basically if you interview for Microsoft, you get a job offer. There's a team that creates your offer letter, right? As an applicant, the only thing you see is you see your offer letter in the mail, in your email. You get excited and you read it. You see how much you're getting paid. What's the benefit when you start? But there's so much things that goes into that happening that you don't know about, right? So part of my job is make sure that if Nick is getting an offer letter, he's able to get it in time, right? He doesn't have to wait 2 weeks, 3 weeks to find out what his offer letter is, because it's also important if you're, for example, like an international student, that's what you use to get your visa or your work authorization or whatever the case is. Part of my job is to also sit down, map out the process from when someone applied to Microsoft to when they get an offer letter, and figure out how is there something to automate, right? Like, is there something we could automate to make it faster? Is there something that we do, but we don't even need to do it in the first place? So how do you improve that process? And how do you enhance it? That's what a program manager is essentially for me is, right? Making sure the process is going on smoothly, but also figuring out, can you save money? Can you improve the process? So if it takes 3 days, can you make the argument for the developers to build something that from 3 days you decrease that to 2 days, right? And then what exactly does that look like? So it's a lot of giving directions to people and problem solving on what to do, but also figuring out how do you improve something. As a PM, that's like the biggest win. Like you can always manage something, but when you actually like change and improve something, that's when like as a PM you're doing your like your job, like you are actually staking your claim on the role. That's I guess a short synopsis of what my like the day to day is and what I do.
That sounds fun. It sounds, and that's so cool. I thought that when you get your offer letter, it's just somebody writing it and sending it to you. That's how I thought it was. So it's awesome to know that there's a program manager in charge of that. That's really cool. That's really cool.
The team that creates that, the job is just to create it. There's a team that the job is to audit it. So that way I'm not offering Mary 200K as opposed to like 100K. Do you know what I mean? Like to make sure that there's no mistakes. There's so much things that flows into the system that generates that offer letter. It's not just like a Word document that they typed out. No, it flows into a system that then creates that. Because when you, for example, my team creates over 10,000 offer letters in a fiscal year. That's not something you can do on Word one by one, right? There has to be a process. There has to be like an automated process that's happening. So that process and the systems and what it takes to create that and to generate that is what I handle.
That like when you explain it, it makes sense that there's no way they're generating Word documents every day to send out to people. So I that sounds like a lot of attention to detail, a lot of work that goes into that. So what skills did you have to develop, or what skills did you have to have going into the job and then develop while on the job?
I had people skill. I had the ability to always want to learn, right? So I get excited when I learn about something new. So like I'm not someone where if I have to learn something new, I'm like again. Like for me, that's the excitement. So you have to be someone who's willing to want to learn, because there's always going to be new things that you don't know. You have to be able to bring people together, right? And you have to know, you have to be the plug, basically. I know X developer. I know this person who's the subject matter expert for this. I know, so like being someone who has all the contacts. So when something goes wrong or when you need an answer to something, you're able to connect those people together. Something I had to learn as well is I had to learn on the job is, first of all, I had to learn exactly like what the entire process is. What does it work? How does it work? But you have to learn to be a problem solver. Like you need to be able to solve an issue and not like in an instant, right? There's an issue, there's a problem. Who's involved? Who's my stakeholders? Who's affected? How do we rectify it? That's very important. Also, I had to learn to look at something in time motion. An example for my team, like one of the things I asked them is, how long does it take you to do X task? How long does it take you to answer this email? Right? Do you get that similar email on a daily basis? If it's yes, okay. Instead of the fact that you spend 3 minutes a day, which equals to 15 minutes a week on this specific task per one person, right? How do we create an automation, or how do we create, whether it's a FAQ or document, where you don't need to spend 3 minutes. Instead of 3 minutes, you spend in 20 seconds or 1 minute. Remember, I said that as a PM, like, improvement is everything. I had to learn to start thinking that way. And if you're able to tell us a story to whoever, whether it's your bosses, your supervisor, the devs, on, like, one of my favorite things. This is really interesting in my role. If I go to, like, the person that manages, like, the developers, and I was like, hey, I need you to create this because like, it's good to have. They will they'll literally, like, they would smile at my face and be like, no, we're not gonna do that, right? Because they have all the things on their plate to do. But if I come in and say, hey, like, this is gonna be good to have, but we're gonna save 1,000 hours of work, plus we're gonna save 80K or whatever. Now they're like, okay, talk to me more. Like, how'd you get that? I was like, okay, cool. Like, let's do it. So basically, using numbers and data to influence people, right? I don't necessarily have the authority to be like, you must do this, and then the developers would be like, great, like, we're gonna do it. So you influence with numbers. So that's something I had to learn and start to do, right? Because except if something is broken, then I could go and be like, I need you to fix this right now, versus I need you to build this because, like, it's nice to have, and I have to start to ask why. Like, why do we do this? Like, oh, we have to do this. Why? Like, why do we do this? Is it because someone came up 25 years ago and said, this is how we're going to do it, and that's how we've always done it? Or is it because back then it was the right way to do it, but now because of the volume that we have, it doesn't make sense to do it the same way? That's the biggest thing I feel like as a PM that you have to start to grow and learn, and I'm still learning as well. I think the final thing is you really just need to be able to, like, working with people is so important. Like, you can't be a program manager if you can't collaborate and if you have no people skill, right? Because you just can't, because you're in a place where you're talking to people all the time. I spend half my day in meetings, right? So you're always, like, in meetings with people, and then you have to tell people what to do, and you have to have that skill to be able to do that. And then making sure that as a PM, I'm providing the framework and all the resources that they need, and then they just have to execute.
That's good. So I'm hearing people skills, negotiation skills. I also heard leadership skills, and what else? There were a lot of them that you said. Collaboration skills. That's a really good skill set to have, even outside the PM world. But I can imagine how useful it is when you want to build something that, like you said, you don't necessarily have an influence to say you have to build, like, you have to build it because I said so. But as against, you should build this because this is what it can help do for us as a team. So I like that, because that encompasses the negotiation part of it. So you showcase all your people skills, your leadership skills, everything, and then you negotiate your way into making things better for your employer. And I like what you said about you're still learning on the job because you don't know it all. And someone out there is like, I don't want to go into program management because it's such many moving things that I have to do. But them hearing you say, I don't know it all, is something that is good, because we're all still learning in our day-to-day, and we're still learning to do things better as well.
No, if you know it all, then you're not growing, then you should find a different job.
That's true. So for this, I know that you talked about the skills that you have and you had before going into the job. Did you need a certification, or do you need a certification in this job?
Like I said every company is different and every like role is different. So I can't speak for others, but for my role, I did not need a certification. You learn on the job, and you just have to show the skill that you can do the job, and you have the mental capacity to do the job. All with that being said, I've been looking at completing my PMP, which is the program management certification that I'm looking to do just to improve on what I already know. And you can't even take the PMP without having to have had like like a duration as a PM. I'll tell you something interesting. I was gonna say about that, and I could be wrong, but you can have a certificate and still not be able to do the job.
Yep,
Right.
that's true.
One thing I've learned is you need to be able to show like I could do the job, and then the certificate is an add-on. It's a boost, right? So you could have the certificate before you get in the job.
What is the growth like in this career? Like,
I'm not gonna say like a generic like statement, but I know at Microsoft you could go from a program manager associate to a program manager. You could become a BPM, which is a business program manager. Then you could become what's called a
Right now.
yeah, and then you could become a program there's a program manager too, and then you could become like a senior manager, a director, X, Y, and Z, moving forward. So it really differs on like the company you're in, the organization you're in, but yeah, I think depending on what track you want to go into, and like I said, there's so many different variations of program management that like there's no specific track. It just depends on like you and
what last words do you have for someone out there who is watching this video and is saying, I want to do program management? What would you tell them?
I'd say the first thing is you should talk to as many people as you can, right? Because like I said, there's variations of program management, so learn the different types of program management that exist. A lot of times I talk to people where they're like, oh, I would love to be a program manager, but I'm not technical. And I'm like, I'm not technical. So you don't need to be technical. You don't need to know how to code. So I think you get that notion of, I need to know how to code out of your mind. If you do, awesome, right? Use that to your advantage. If you don't, that's also fine. So talking to different people and learning what the different variations is, what people do, and then once you do, figure out like what interests you, like what kind of program manager do you want to be? You're going to be a technical program manager, so that way you can work more on your technical skills. Are you like me, where I'm like, science and coding and all that stuff is not for me? So like, this is my lane, and I'm gonna stick to my lane. That's also important. I think that's very essential. And then like reading, educating yourself. There's a book called Cracking the PM interview. Cracking. There's a lot of books on Amazon that focused on program management. Just reading about tailoring your resume to that, to showcasing what is similar that you've done, what spaces and what skills do you have, and then just applying. And then just I think something that's also important is like never giving up. Like you need to have the ability to take no for an answer and keep it moving and keep like improving, right? Because I tried twice, it was a no. Like I'm gonna stop trying. Like you have to keep at it. I think that's very important.
Love that statement you made about be willing to fail, and that's true. It can be tough. It can break you or it can make you. So yeah, that's really nice. Thank you so much, Ayo, for agreeing to do this, taking the time out of your day.